Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock that I've been really loving, that I want you guys to hear as well. Trying to put a spotlight on newer progressive rock artists that deserve the love and attention. Prog music didn't die in the 70s. It's still alive and kicking today with some of the greatest releases in all of prog's history coming out now, if you can believe it. So I have an excellent one that I want to talk about. One of the premier prog projects that I've heard this year. This is Karmakanic's latest album, Transmutation. And Karmakanic is helmed by one Jonas Reingold, who comes from this kind of Flower Kings family. And what a family it is, because there's been so many releases from these different projects and members of the Flower Kings. Of course, all of the many Roy Stolt projects that have come out over the years, his collaboration with John Anderson, his Agents of Mercy albums, and all the various collaborations he's done. The Sea Within as well was a great little collab that he did. His stuff with Transatlantic, obviously. So there's a lot there, but Jonas Reingold was a member of the Flower Kings as well, and has branched off to do his Karmakanic project. We also have Hasse Froberg and Musical Companion, which is excellent. Had a great album last year, Eternal Snapshots. So a lot of great talent from these members. Tomas Bodin, who even guests on this album, was the keyboardist for Flower Kings, and he's done a lot of solo records and instrumental music as well. So just so much great music coming out of this fellowship of musicians, this kind of Flower Kings group. And Karmakanic is one of the best of the bunch. And I don't want to act like it's just an offshoot of the Flower Kings, that it's just kind of a side project. It's its own band. It's a full-on project that stands on its own 2 feet, definitely. And every album that they've put out has been absolutely fantastic for my ears. I absolutely love it. They have 5 albums prior to this one, so this is their 6th studio album. Really, I came in with Wheel of Life, which I thought was an excellent record, their second one, but Entering the Spectra is really the first album proper, which came out in 2002. But the standout release from their catalog, for me at least, was Who's the Boss in the Factory in 2008, which I felt brought them up to another level. Send a Message from the Heart, being the opening epic of the record, was just one of my favorite epics of that year, of the past 20 years or whatever. I think it's fantastic. Prog at its best, and conquered some great heights there. In a Perfect World came out in 2011 after that, and then we got Dot in 2016. But now, 9 years later, the biggest gap in their catalog here, we get Transmutation. And I think largely because Jonas Reingold has been pretty busy with other projects during this time span, especially with Steve Hackett, who he's been a touring member of that band. And they tour nonstop. Steve Hackett just seems to do nothing but tour constantly, one tour right after the other. So doesn't leave a lot of breathing room and breaks for the members to go off and do their own projects. But we've got one here. Finally, Karmakanic comes out with a real banger of an album, just a fantastic release. To me, this is like classy prog. It just sounds pristine. The production values are high, and it features a cast of some of the biggest and brightest stars in modern prog. It feels like prog's version of like We Are the World, where we've got all these notable figures that we've come to love over the years if you've been following modern progressive rock. Of course, we've got Jonas Reingold proper doing bass, keyboards, electric guitar, vocals, backing vocals, fretless bass. We've got Krister Johnson, who's been a guitar player on the Karmakanic records, playing lead guitar on this record. Goran Edman was the previous vocalist. He's only guesting on this album on one track, unfortunately. And we've got Lely Larson, who's played with them, doing some keyboards on the record as well. But we've also got, as guest stars on the record, we've got Andy Tillison of Tangent fame. We've got Simon Phillips, one of the greatest drummers in the current scene. We've got Luke Montkin on guitars as well. John Mitchell takes over lead vocal duties in fantastic fashion. He's omnipresent in the prog scene. He's a part of a million different projects. Randy McStein also plays on this record, who's becoming the same kind of person who is on a ton of different records and who plays in seemingly every prog band now. Craig Blundell does some drum work. Rob Townsend does some saxophones. Tomas Bodin, as I mentioned, does some keyboards on this record. Nick DiVirgilio plays drums. Steve Hackett does a guest guitar spot. Matt DeLeman does some backing vocals. Roger King on keyboards here, and others. Just a ton of notable people that I've been following and loving through various prog bands in these past 20, 25 years or so of listening to modern prog. And so this is just a beautiful, mature sounding album, and definitely has that signature Karmakanic style and sound, this kind of big symphonic feel, kind of not too far removed from what Flower Kings does, but in its own lane. But I feel like it brings a bit more new warmth and accessibility because we add the vocals of John Mitchell, who just has a really accessible voice that brings you in, that has this really cool, warm tone to it. He sounds a bit like Peter Gabriel. He has this almost inviting raspy quality to his voice that sounds really beautiful and fits like a glove into this progressive rock music. And you get to feel all the virtuosity on display of all these different musicians. But I feel like Jonas Reingold smartly grounds the ship with his bass work, which is just off the charts throughout the whole record. He shows off his chops, never lets up. The bass is always very prominent, and he's doing a lot of busy kind of work on the bass, not too far removed from like a Chris Squire or even Jaco Pastorius, just constantly moving and doing a bunch of things under the surface, but it never distracts, it never takes away, but only adds to the music. And alongside some fantastic drummers, the rhythm section just is off the chain. You know, you've got Simon Phillips playing on this, as well as Nick DiVirgilio and Craig Blundell, three of the premier prog drummers. You can't really get much better than that. So they hold it down fantastically well and allow for everybody to shine and make this feel like a truly huge, expansive, collaborative effort. It starts off with Brace for Impact, which is kind of a short 2.5-minute instrumental blast. You get some organ swelling, some propulsive drumming, some busy bass work, trade-off of Hammond organ and blistering guitar solos, a great cool keyboard solo from Lally Larson. It's just bombastic prog at its best, getting you excited about the prog journey ahead that you're about to embark upon. So kind of just a short intro into the album before we get into the first proper track, End of the Road, which is absolutely gorgeous. One of my favorite tracks on the record. Great gentle piano before we get this full majestic symphonic prog opening. Just beautiful, delightful keys, bright guitar sounds. You get kind of this Yes feel to it as well. And like classic Flower Kings as well. John Mitchell's voice is really beautiful on this track. It's a great introduction to him being kind of the new prominent vocalist for Karmakanic. I love Randy McStein's backing vocals through the track, which adds another layer to John Mitchell's sound as well. Love the breakdown in the middle, these swirling synths and clever repeating vocal hooks, leading to some really great playing by everyone involved. Luke Machin does an incredible guitar solo. We get some keyboard majesty, some gorgeous acoustic guitars, great sumptuous vocal deliveries, and a great massive play out at the end with these big sounding drums, some furious guitar playing, and soaring to the biggest, proggiest heights that you could imagine before we get that kind of gentle piano playing out at the end. So just a perfectly constructed epic. It's not really an epic, but it's over 10 minutes in length, so it's kind of a mini epic that does all that you want in prog, and I absolutely adore it. I think it's one of the signature tracks on the release. And then we get a few kind of different style songs in the middle of the album. I feel like this is kind of the bookend, the opening Brace for Impact and Into the Road kind of being the opening mini epic of sorts, and then we get the big epic at the end that I'll get to, the title track, which is about 23 minutes long. But then we get a bunch of interesting tracks in the middle. Cosmic Love is a bit of the kind of the poppier track of the album, which it feels like Karmakanic does this a lot of the time. On their records, they introduce kind of a poppier, more accessible track like Let in Hollywood from Who's the Boss, or Turn It Up from their album In a Perfect World. You know, just more catchy. It still has a bit of adventurous progginess on display to keep the prog fans happy. But I love how this track, Cosmic Love, brings a bit of an 80s electronica touch in the keyboards, and it's the perfect backdrop to Mitchell's just incredible vocal work, showcasing all of his greatness and warmth to his vocals. Love the driving bass line throughout the track. I think it's a real highlight, which makes sense since Jonas is such a prominent figure on this whole album. Love kind of this brief, dreamy acoustic guitar part before the full power hits in the chorus. And it's just a great track and well placed on the album, I think. After this bigger, more grandiose, proggier track, we get a little bit of a breather here. Then we got The World in Our Hands, which is another beautiful, bright, Yes-like track with those really signature acoustic guitars, some great piano, more prominent Chris Squire style bass, very catchy sing-along style chorus. There's almost like a calypso style in the music that comes out of the chorus to give it a little bit of a different flavor and a different style. And it's just a beautiful symphonic prog treat, just full of adventure and joy, but never sacrificing the great melodies abounding on this track. All That Glitters Is Not Gold has a bit of a darker, more moodier feel, especially in the chorus. There's a bit of an expressive accordion sound, which they similarly used on Eternally from Who's the Boss in the Factory. It has a cool touch, kind of this almost French style kind of noir sound to it. It starts off a bit of a ballad type feel, but it builds in intensity, almost adding a bit of a metallic crunch in some of the heavier sections. We get some great saxophone breaks over heavy backing chords. The ending is quite dramatic, almost brings to mind like some King Crimson-esque sounds and blistering sax soloing. Really cool how it blends these two styles, this heavier crunch to the more acoustic style flair. Love it. Gotta Lose This Ball and Chain. Get another kind of rockier, darker vibe as we get into this track. Great active, rumbling bass lines. A lighter acoustic feel at sections, similar to the track before it. We get kind of this blend of more lighter acoustic feel to the darker, more heavier vibes as well. There's excellent bluesy guitar soloing. As the background music builds itself in intensity, we get kind of a cool keyboard-led atmospheric break. And really the highlight about this track is that we get the vocals of Goran Edman at the end of the track, kind of a dual vocal with John Mitchell as well, to give him another spotlight. Because he's a fantastic vocalist who's such a signature part of Karmakanic's sound up to this point. I read somewhere that a big reason why he wasn't singing as much on this new record is because Jonas Reingold kind of had touring in mind when he made this record, and Goran Edman just isn't available for upcoming touring, and John Mitchell seemed like a better fit for that. But it's nice to hear a little piece of his vocals to give this kind of that classic Karmakanic vibe. And then we get into Transmutation, which is just everything that you want in a big, massive epic. I think Karmakanic does epics expertly well. That's kind of their bread and butter, and that's the case here. We save the best for last, which goes through so many different movements, so many different feels. Begins with this beautiful light symphonic opening with gentle piano, bass lines and keyboard textures. Acoustic guitar comes in with Mitchell's very textured vocals. We get these majestic prog keyboards and dramatic drum flourishes. This is where Nick DiVirgilio is really allowed to shine here, and I feel like especially in the verses, their groove just gets locked in place, and is one of the most satisfying parts of this whole track is that groove that they hit together, and it perfectly fits like a glove here. We get some lovely female vocals added into the mix, which I believe are from Dina Hoblinger. Just absolutely gorgeous, a great fit, excellent soaring guitar leads, beautiful piano, wonderful majesty and wonder. I love how they just take their time to build this work as it continues forward. We get a really cool hazy keyboard solo with a jazzy inflection. We get some really cool vocal interplay and different things going on in the mix. And just when you're lulled into this kind of majestic feel that's been going through the track, you get this really cool powerhouse section with killer jazz vibes, kind of like a jam session with funky keyboard soloing, expressive groovy bass lines, full-on freak-out guitar soloing. The drumming from Nick DiVirgilio in this section is just off the charts. We get some saxophone stabs, plenty of keyboard power, and this goes on for quite some time in the track, and it's just magical when the keyboard comes back in with the soaring main melody, and it just is a non-stop powerhouse of amazing musicianship, some of the best display of prog playing that I've heard in recent memory. And then we get it all to slow down a little bit with this nylon string guitar solo spot from Steve Hackett with swelling strings behind him. Brings to mind some of the lighter parts of Stardust We Are from the Flower Kings, in fact. And then the vocals are added back in before we're headed towards the finale with heavenly chanting vocals, swirling music around them, blistering guitar solos taking us to another height, and a slow crescendo full of majesty and beauty and wonder, and the typical repeating of kind of the big motifs of the track just to lead to this beautiful, breathtaking finale. Perfect ending to what's been a perfect prog album. So I can't praise this enough. It's just masterfully done prog by some of the best in the genre. Definitely a must listen for all modern prog fans. If you love any of the musicians that I've mentioned or any of the bands that I've referenced, this is just top tier, excellent sounding progressive rock, and the production is just pristine. It was made with a lot of care and love, and I think this is going to be a supremely memorable progressive rock release this year that a lot of people will be talking about. So go check it out. It should be available out there and about. I found from talking with my friend who's trying to find it over in the UK that he wasn't able to see it on streaming services there, but maybe by the time this review comes out, it will show up there. It's available in streaming services where I'm at in North America here, so maybe it depends on where you're at if you're able to stream it or not. But it's definitely available for purchase on CD. I wouldn't be surprised to see a vinyl release in a few months. I think that's been teased as well, so definitely well worth your time and attention. I'm excited. They're going to be playing on Cruise to the Edge, which I'm going to be attending. Hopefully they play some tracks from this record there. And yeah, it's just fantastic. Do yourself a favor and listen to this record and enjoy the best of what modern prog has to offer. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Hopefully you appreciated the review, and let me know in the comments how you feel about this record if you've heard it, and I'd love to know. So thank you guys, and keep enjoying the music out there. Bye everybody.